I know what it feels like to read words that were never meant for your eyes. My grandson was 16 years old when he added me to a family group chat. He didn't know he did it. I had been sitting in it for 3 weeks before I saw his message. That message was about me. He was telling his cousins I was old, that I was embarrassing, that I couldn't figure out how to forward a photo. He had no idea I was already in the chat. I stared at the screen for a long time. And then I made a decision about what kind of grandfather I was going to be. This is the story of a 63-year-old retired contractor who found himself silent in a place he was never supposed to be. A private group chat. 3 weeks of watching his grandson talk about him to cousins. And the choice that followed. Why should you care? Because every family now lives inside this tension. The gap between what teens say in their digital safe spaces and what the older generation is tech-savvy enough to overhear. More than 3 out of 4 teenagers admit their parents or grandparents embarrass them online. But what happens when the embarrassment goes both ways? What happens when the person you dismissed as technologically helpless turns out to have been watching the whole time? The answer changed this family forever. And it starts with a phone notification that should never have happened. My name is Robert. I am 63 years old and I live alone on 4 acres outside of a small town in western Kentucky. My wife Sarah passed from cancer 11 years ago. My only child, a daughter named Claire, moved to Ohio after college. She visits twice a year, calls on Sundays. That was the shape of my life until 3 years ago when her son Ethan came to live with me. Ethan was 13 when his parents separated. His father stayed in Ohio. His mother needed time to get stable. She asked if he could stay with me for a semester. That semester turned into 3 years. I did not plan to raise a teenager at 60, but I knew how to build things with my hands, and I figured a boy that age needed something solid to hold onto. So I taught him to work wood in the shop behind the house. By the time he was 15, he could build a cabinet from scratch. He had his grandmother's patience and her stubbornness, and he had a phone glued to his palm constantly. That phone was the source of most of our friction. Ethan lived inside group chats. Dozens of them, he told me once when I asked. One for his baseball team, one for his school project group, one for his cousins, one for his friends from summer camp. I did not understand how anyone could keep track of that many conversations. He laughed at me. He said, "Grandpa, it's not that hard, you just don't know how to use apps." He was right. I did not. I had a flip phone until 2 years ago. I only got a smartphone because my daughter insisted I needed one for emergencies. I still typed with one finger. The cousins' group chat was called The Crew. There were 5 of them: Ethan, his cousin Maya, who was a year older, her brother Derek, and 2 younger ones from their aunt's side. They lived in 3 different states. The chat was how they stayed connected. I knew about it because Ethan talked about it at dinner sometimes. He would read out a funny message from Maya or complain about something Derek said. I did not think much of it. It was teenage stuff. Then one Thursday evening in early September, I was sitting on the porch after dinner. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from WhatsApp. Someone had added me to a group called The Crew. I opened it and saw that Maya had added me. She must have saved my number from a family Christmas email. There was a message from her. "Hey everyone, added Grandpa so he can see the photos from the reunion." Then a few messages from the cousins saying hi. I typed a simple hello with one finger. That was the last thing I sent. I did not leave the chat because I did not know how, and I did not want to ask Ethan to help me leave it because that would mean admitting I was in it, so I stayed. I told myself I would just ignore the notifications, but I did not ignore them. I started reading. At first it was harmless. Jokes, complaints about school, plans for video calls. I learned that Maya was applying to colleges. Derek hated his history teacher. The younger ones argued over which movie to watch. It felt like eavesdropping on a world I was not supposed to see. I told myself I should leave, but I did not. 3 weeks passed. I read the chat every evening. Ethan would come home from school, toss his bag on the floor, and disappear into his room. I would hear his phone buzz from the hallway. He never knew I was in the same digital room. Then one Tuesday night, I saw a message from Ethan that made me stop breathing. Grandpa is so embarrassing. He tried to forward a photo to Aunt Linda and he literally sent it to himself 3 times. I had to show him how to do it. I swear he's from the Stone Age. I love him, but he makes me want to die. There were laughing emojis from the cousins. Maya wrote, "He's so sweet though." Ethan replied, "Yeah, I know, but he can't even figure out how to save a contact. I have to do everything for him." I sat on the porch chair for a long time with the phone in my hand. The screen glowed in the dark. I read the message 3 times. I was not angry. I was hurt, but it was a quiet hurt, the kind that settles in your chest and stays there. He was not wrong. I did need his help with the phone. I did struggle with forwarding photos, but reading it in writing, shared with his cousins, made it feel different. It felt like I was a punchline in a private joke. I thought about sending a message. I thought about typing, "I can see this, Ethan." I imagined his face when he saw it, the embarrassment, the apology. But then what? He would know I was in the chat. He would stop talking freely. The cousins would know their grandfather was lurking. I would become the old man who spies on kids instead of the old man who cannot use technology. Neither version was good. So I put the phone down. I made a choice. I would not say anything. I would stay in the chat. I would keep reading. And I would figure out what kind of grandfather I was going to be. But I did not know then that the chat held more than embarrassment. I did not know that what I was about to see would change everything between me and my grandson. I did not know that staying silent would be the hardest thing I had ever done. And I did not know that the real story had not even started yet. The next morning, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my phone face down. I had not slept well. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's message glowing in the dark. I wanted to believe it was nothing. Kids talk, they vent. They say things they do not mean. I told myself I had done the same thing at his age, complaining about my parents to friends in the schoolyard. But this was different. This was written down. This was shared with an audience. And this was happening in a space where I was not supposed to exist. I did not confront him. I cooked breakfast instead. Eggs, bacon, toast, the same thing I made every morning. He came down at 7:15, hair messy, still half asleep. He sat down and ate without saying much. He checked his phone between bites. I watched him scroll through messages and laugh at something. I knew exactly which chat he was looking at. I said nothing. That afternoon, I did something I am not proud of. I opened the chat while Ethan was at school. I scrolled back to the beginning 3 weeks earlier and I read everything, every single message. It took me 2 hours. I learned things about my grandson that I had not known. I learned that he hated his new school. He had told the cousins he felt like a loser there. He wrote, "I have 0 friends. Everyone already knows each other from middle school. I'm just the weird new kid from Ohio." I learned that he was struggling in math. He wrote, "Grandpa tries to help, but he does it the old way and it just confuses me more. I tell him I got it, so he stops." I learned that his father had not called him in 4 months. He typed, "My dad doesn't give a crap. He has a new girlfriend and a new life. I'm just an inconvenience." That one stayed with me. I had known the situation was hard. I did not know it was that hard. He never talked about his father. Whenever I brought it up, he shrugged and changed the subject. I thought that meant he was fine. I was wrong. The more I read, the more the picture changed. He was not just a teenager being a teenager. He was a boy who had been dropped into a new life and was drowning quietly. The chat was his lifeline. His cousins were the only people he could be honest with, and I had invaded that space without permission. I felt ashamed, but I kept reading. Then I reached a message from 2 weeks earlier. It was from Maya. She wrote, "Ethan, you know you can come live with us if it gets bad, right? Mom said she would talk to your grandpa." Ethan replied, "I know, but I can't leave him. He's old and alone. Who would take care of him?" I had to put the phone down. I walked to the window and stood there looking at the yard. The boy thought he had to take care of me. He was 15 years old, struggling in a new school, missing his father, and he was worried about me. And I had been sitting here feeling sorry for myself because he called me embarrassing. I went back to the chat. I needed to see more. That night I found something that stopped me cold. It was a message from Ethan sent at 2 in the morning, 3 days before he made the comment about me. He wrote, "I don't think I can do this anymore. I'm tired of pretending everything is fine." Maya replied immediately, "What do you mean? Are you okay?" Ethan, "Yeah, I'm fine, just tired. I had a fight with Grandpa today. He doesn't understand anything. He thinks I'm still a little kid. I tried to tell him I wanted to go to the school dance and he said it was too late and I had homework. I know he means well, but I can't breathe sometimes." Maya, "Do you want me to talk to him?" Ethan, "No, don't. I'll figure it out, I always do." Maya, "Promise me you'll talk to someone if it gets bad." Ethan, "I promise." I stared at that message for a long time. I don't think I can do this anymore. I had known he was unhappy. I did not know he was that unhappy. I thought giving him structure and routine was enough. I thought teaching him woodworking and making him dinner was enough. I had been so focused on being the responsible adult that I forgot to be the one he could talk to. I wanted to go to his room and hug him. I wanted to tell him I understood, but I could not do that without admitting I had read his private messages. And if I did that, I would break whatever trust was left between us. He would never forgive me. He would see me as a spy instead of a grandfather. So I stayed quiet again. I stayed quiet and I kept reading. The next day I noticed something different in the chat. Ethan had not posted for 12 hours. That was unusual. He was usually active every few minutes. I checked again at dinner. Nothing. I checked before bed. Nothing. I started to worry. I knocked on his door and asked if he was okay. He said he was fine, just tired. He did not look at me when he said it. The next morning there was a message from Maya. "Ethan, why aren't you answering? We're all worried." No reply. Derek wrote, "Dude, where are you? Respond, please." No reply. I called his school. They said he had not shown up. I called his friends. Nobody had seen him. I called my daughter. She started crying. I walked through the house calling his name. I checked the shop. I checked the barn. I checked the tree line behind the property. Nothing. And then I remembered the chat. I opened it one more time. There was a new message from Ethan sent just minutes earlier. It was a voice memo. I pressed play. His voice came through small and tired. "Hey everyone, I'm sorry. I just needed to get away for a bit. I'm at the old railroad bridge by the creek. I used to go there when I was little with Grandpa. I don't know what I'm doing. I just needed to think. Don't worry about me. I'll be back later." The railroad bridge. I knew exactly where that was. It was half a mile through the woods behind the house. I had taken him there when he was 9 on one of his summer visits. We had sat on the edge and thrown rocks into the water. He had asked me if I thought his dad loved him. I had said yes, of course he does. I had been lying then. I think we both knew it. I grabbed my jacket and ran out the door. I did not call anyone. I did not wait. I ran through the woods, branches hitting my face, my old knees screaming. I could not lose him. I could not lose the boy who thought he had to take care of me. I reached the bridge and I saw him sitting on the edge, feet dangling over the creek, phone in his hand. He looked up when he heard me coming. "Grandpa," his voice cracked. I stopped a few feet away, breathing hard. I did not know what to say. I could not tell him I had read his messages. I could not tell him I knew everything. So I said the only thing that mattered. "Ethan, I'm here. I'm right here, and I'm not going anywhere." He started crying. I sat down next to him on the edge of the bridge. The water was running below us, dark and slow. We did not talk for a long time, and when we finally walked back to the house, I knew that the chat had to stop being a secret. I had to tell him the truth, but I did not know if he would ever trust me again after he found out. We walked back to the house in silence. The sun was low, casting long shadows through the trees. Ethan kept his eyes on the ground. I kept mine on him, watching every step, afraid he might fall or run or disappear again. When we reached the porch, he stopped. He did not go inside. He sat down on the bottom step and put his head in his hands. I sat beside him. The wood was cold, My knees ached from running. I could hear my own heartbeat. I knew I had to tell him. I had delayed it long enough. Every minute I stayed silent was another minute of lying, but the words would not come. How do you tell a child you have been reading his most private thoughts for weeks? I started by asking if he was hungry. He shook his head. I asked if he wanted to talk about what happened at the bridge. He shook his head again. I said, "Ethan, I need to tell you something, and you are not going to like it, but I need you to hear me out before you say anything." He looked up, his eyes were red. "What?" I took out my phone. I opened WhatsApp. I turned the screen toward him. He saw the chat name, The Crew. He saw my icon at the top. He saw the messages below. His face changed slowly, like someone watching a car crash in slow motion. "You're in the chat." His voice was barely a whisper. "Yes." "How long?" 3 weeks, since Maya added me." He stood up. His hands were shaking. "You have been reading my messages for 3 weeks." "Yes." He stepped back. "You have been spying on me." "I did not mean to spy. I did not know how to leave. And then I saw what you wrote about me, and I got hurt. And then I kept reading because I wanted to understand you." "Understand me?" His voice cracked. "You invaded my privacy. You read everything, every stupid thing I said, every feeling I had. You had no right." "I know." "You know," he was yelling now, tears streaming down his face. "You know, and you just watched me all this time. You let me embarrass myself. You let me think I was safe." "I was wrong, Ethan. I was wrong to stay in that chat. I was wrong to keep reading. I am telling you now because you deserve the truth. And I am sorry. I am truly sorry." He turned away. He walked to the edge of the yard. He stood with his back to me, shoulders heaving. I stayed on the step. I did not follow. I gave him space. Minutes passed. The sky turned orange. A dog barked somewhere down the road. When he finally spoke, his voice was smaller than I had ever heard it. "How much did you see?" "Everything. Everything. From the beginning." He turned around. "So you saw the stuff about my dad?" "Yes." "You saw the stuff about me feeling like I can't do this anymore?" "Yes." "You saw what I said last night about the bridge?" "That voice memo you sent. I got it while I was looking for you. That is how I knew where you were." He sat down on the grass, not on the step, on the ground. He pulled his knees to his chest. I was going to jump. The words hit me like a physical blow. "Ethan." I was sitting there. I was looking at the water. I was thinking about how easy it would be. Just lean forward, let go, and it would all be over. The loneliness, the pressure, the feeling that I do not belong anywhere. "Why did not you?" He was quiet for a long time. "Because I thought about you finding me. I thought about you having to identify my body, and I could not do that to you." I crossed the yard. I sat down on the grass next to him. I did not touch him. I did not know if he wanted to be touched. I said, "You are the most important person in my life, Ethan. You and your mother. I know I am old. I know I cannot figure out a phone. I know I embarrass you, but I would burn this whole world down for you. And I am sorry I did not show that better." He cried. I cried. We sat on the grass in the backyard as the light faded, two people who had hurt each other without meaning to. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like we were actually talking. But the story was not over. The next morning, my daughter Claire called. She had heard from Ethan's school that he had missed a day. She wanted to know what happened. I told her the truth. I told her about the chat, about the bridge, about everything. She was silent for a long time. "Dad, I need to tell you something. I was going to wait until I visited, but you need to know now. Ethan's father has been trying to get in touch. He wants to see him. He has a lawyer. He is talking about custody." I felt the ground shift beneath me. He abandoned him. He has not called in 4 months. He says he has changed. He says he wants to make things right, and he has been documenting my communication. He says I kept Ethan from him. He is threatening to take me to court. I looked across the kitchen at Ethan, who was eating cereal at the table, unaware. He had been through enough. And now this. The one person who had hurt him most was coming back to hurt him again. That was the moment I made a decision. I was not going to let it happen. I had been passive in that chat. I had been silent when I should have spoken. I would not be silent again. I would fight. I would learn whatever I needed to learn. I would call whoever I needed to call. I would stand in front of anyone who tried to take that boy from me. But first, I had to tell Ethan that his father was coming back, and I had no idea how he would take it. I told Ethan that evening. I sat him down at the kitchen table and I did not hold anything back. I told him his father had contacted a lawyer. I told him there was a petition being filed. I told him that his father wanted him back, and that he was claiming Claire and I had kept him away intentionally. I watched his face go through stages I recognized from the chat transcript. Disbelief, anger, then something deeper and quieter that scared me more than yelling ever could. "He does not want me," Ethan said. "He wants to win. He wants to prove he is not the bad guy. I am just a trophy to him." I did not argue, because I suspected he was right. But I also knew that what a judge would see was different. A father who had cleaned up his life. A father with a job and a residence. A father who had been kept from his son by a bitter ex-wife and an overprotective grandfather. That was the story his lawyer would tell. And the court would weigh that against a 15-year-old's word and a grandfather who had technically been spying on the kid through a group chat. The spying part kept me up at night. If this went to court, the chat could become evidence. And if the chat became evidence, the fact that I had silently watched my grandson deteriorate for 3 weeks without intervening would be right there in black and white. A good lawyer could spin that into negligence or worse. I called my daughter Claire. We talked for 2 hours. She told me she had already spoken to a family attorney. The attorney had said the father's case was weak on its face, because he had voluntarily surrendered custody years ago and had made no contact. But she also said that if we wanted to win decisively, we needed to show the court a stable, positive home environment and a clear record of parental abandonment. I hung up and looked at Ethan. He was on the couch, scrolling his phone. I wondered what he was reading. I wondered if he was still talking to his cousins. I wondered if he had told them about the bridge, about me, about any of it. "Can I ask you something?" I said. He looked up. "Do you still talk in the group chat?" He hesitated. "Sometimes. Maya keeps sending stuff. I read it, but I do not really respond." "Do they know what happened?" "About the bridge. Yeah, I told Maya, she told Derek. Derek told the others. They have been checking on me." I nodded. "That is good. That is what family is supposed to do." He looked at me strangely. "You are not mad that they know?" "Ethan, I am mad at myself for not knowing sooner. I am mad at myself for reading your private messages instead of just asking you how you were doing. I am not mad at your cousins for caring about you." He put his phone down. "What happens now with my dad?" "We fight, we get a lawyer, we show them the truth." "What truth?" "That he left, that he never called, that you are better off here." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said something I will never forget. "The chat is going to come out, is not it? In court. They are going to see what I wrote. They are going to see that I wanted to jump off that bridge." I did not have an answer that made it better, so I told him the truth. "Probably. But if they do, they will also see that you reached out, that you told your cousins, that you asked for help in your own way, and that you are still here. That matters more than the dark parts." The hearing was set for early December. 6 weeks to prepare. In those 6 weeks, I learned more about the legal system than I had in my entire life. I learned about filing deadlines, about evidentiary standards, about the difference between physical custody and legal custody. I learned that a judge in Kentucky would consider the child's wishes if the child was mature enough, but that there was no set age for that. I learned that a documented history of abandonment was powerful, but that a recent change in circumstances could tip the scale. I also learned something else, something I had not expected. Ethan's father, whose name was Mark, had been sending letters, not to Claire's address, to our address. He had sent 3 letters over the past 2 months. I had not known because they were addressed to Ethan, and Ethan had hidden them. I found them by accident. I was cleaning his room while he was at school. I was not snooping. I was vacuuming under his bed, and an envelope fell out from between the mattress and the box spring. I recognized the return address. I sat on his bed and held the envelope. It was unsealed. I could have read it. I should have read it. But I had already crossed too many lines. I put it back. When Ethan came home, I told him what I had found. He turned red. "You went through my room." I was vacuuming. It fell out. I did not read it. He grabbed the envelope and shoved it in his backpack. "What does he say?" I asked. "Nothing, just stupid stuff. He says he is sorry. He says he wants to make it right. He says he has changed." "Do you believe him?" He did not answer. That silence told me more than any words could. The week before the hearing, something unexpected happened. Maya's mother, my niece, called me. She said she had been talking to Maya, who had been talking to Ethan, who had told her everything, and she had an idea. She suggested that the cousins all write letters to the judge, not about the custody case, about Ethan, about who he was as a person, about what kind of environment he thrived in. It was not a legal strategy, it was a human one. I called Beverly, the attorney who had helped me with the guardianship years ago. She had retired, but she listened. She said the letters were a good idea. She also said there was something else I should consider. "The chat," she said. "You mentioned it has messages where Ethan expressed distress. If you enter those into evidence, you are opening the door to cross-examination about why you did not act sooner. But if you do not enter them, you lose the strongest proof of his state of mind and his father's absence. You have to choose." I chose. I told her to enter them. I would face whatever questions came. The day of the hearing arrived cold and gray. We drove to the courthouse in my truck. Ethan sat in the passenger seat, quiet, wearing the button-down shirt I had bought him for the debate tournament he never went to. Claire met us there. She hugged Ethan, and then she hugged me, and she whispered, "Whatever happens, we tried." Mark was already in the courtroom. I had not seen him in person for over 3 years. He looked different, thinner, older. He wore a suit that did not fit quite right. He did not look at us. The judge was a woman in her 50s with reading glasses low on her nose. She had a calm voice but sharp eyes. The hearing lasted 3 hours. Mark's attorney argued that his client had undergone rehabilitation, that he had a stable job and housing, that he had been prevented from contacting his son by Claire and by me. Mark himself testified. He cried. I do not know if the tears were real. Our attorney, a young woman named Patel who had taken over Beverly's practice, presented the counter-evidence. The letters from Mark that Ethan had hidden. The school records showing Ethan's decline after the move. The therapist's note from the hospital visit after the bridge incident. And then, she introduced the chat transcript. She read selected messages aloud. Ethan's words about feeling like he could not do it anymore, about wanting to disappear, about his father not caring. The courtroom was silent. Mark stared at the table. Then came my cross-examination. Mark's attorney asked me about the chat, about when I joined, about why I did not leave, about why I did not tell anyone sooner. I answered honestly. I admitted I had made mistakes. I admitted I should have gone to Ethan directly. But I also said that reading those messages made me see my grandson clearly for the first time in months, and that I had been trying to do better ever since. The judge asked to speak with Ethan privately. They went into chambers. We waited for 20 minutes. When Ethan came out, his eyes were dry. He sat next to me and squeezed my hand under the table. The judge returned. She adjusted her glasses. She said, "This court finds that the father has failed to demonstrate a sustained, genuine effort to reestablish a parental relationship. The evidence of emotional distress suffered by the minor child while in the father's absence is substantial. The child has expressed a clear and consistent preference to remain in the care of his grandfather. The petition for custody is denied. I exhaled. Claire started crying. Ethan sat very still. But the judge was not finished. She looked at me directly. I also want to address Mr. Roberts' actions regarding the group chat. While his intentions may have been complex, his decision to monitor a minor child's private communications without consent and to withhold that information even after recognizing signs of distress is concerning. I strongly recommend that this family pursue counseling and that clear boundaries be established regarding digital privacy. I nodded. She was right. We walked out of the courthouse into the cold December air. Ethan turned to me. "Can we go home now?" "Yeah, buddy, we can go home." That night I did something I had been avoiding. I asked Ethan to show me how to leave the group chat. He laughed, not a mean laugh, a surprised one. "You want to leave the chat?" "I think it is time." He showed me. I pressed the button. I was out. Then he added me back. "What are you doing?" "You should stay," he said. "But from now on you have to actually talk, no more lurking." "Deal." I still do not understand most of what happens in that chat. The memes, the slang, the inside jokes that take 15 messages to explain, but I respond. I send a thumbs up. I tell them when I am proud of Ethan. I tell them when dinner is ready. And sometimes when I am feeling brave, I send a photo I took myself, even if I send it 3 times by accident. Ethan still rolls his eyes, but he does not laugh at me anymore, not the way he did. Now he says, "Good job, Grandpa," and that is all I need. Now he says, "Good job, Grandpa," and that is all I need. But here is the thing I have been turning over in my mind ever since that day in the courtroom. The group chat is not the problem. It is an amplifier. It takes whatever is already there, love, frustration, loneliness, care, and it broadcasts it to an invisible audience. I was in that chat for 3 weeks before I saw the message about myself. And in those 3 weeks, I watched my grandson hand me every signal a kid can give. I just did not know how to read them because they were written in a language I had never bothered to learn. The numbers tell a story that should stop every parent and grandparent cold. The average teenager belongs to more than 80 group conversations across multiple apps. Nearly half of them say they are online almost constantly, and more than 3 out of 4 say their parents or grandparents embarrass them online. That is not a generation gap. That is a canyon. And we are standing on opposite rims, shouting into the wind, wondering why nobody hears. I was lucky. My grandson is still here. He still speaks to me. He still sits at my table. But I think about the kids who are not that lucky. The ones whose silent cries for help get buried under 100 memes and inside jokes. The ones whose grandparents never get added to the chat. The ones who sit on railroad bridges alone because they do not think anyone is listening. The justice system did its job in our case, but it should never have had to. What stopped me from walking into Ethan's room that first night and saying, "I saw your message, I am hurt, but I am here, talk to me"? What stopped me was pride and fear, and the false belief that silence was safer than honesty. I still do not know how to forward a photo without sending it 3 times. I still type with 1 finger, but I learned something more important than any app. I learned that being present means being willing to be embarrassed. It means letting your grandson teach you. It means staying in the chat even when it stings, because that is where the real conversation is happening. There is a question I want to leave you with, not about group chats or custody battles. It is simpler than that. When was the last time you asked the teenager in your life what they are really saying in those groups? Not what they are posting, what they are feeling. Because I promise you, the signal is there. You just have to be willing to read it. If this story reminded you of someone you need to reach out to, do not wait. Go find them. Have the hard conversation. And if you want more stories about families finding their way through the noise, hit subscribe. Because the silence between generations is getting louder every day. But it does not have to stay that way.